Bridges. What are they? What are they for? Cross them, burn them, gaslight them, write them. Like, what is a bridge in songwriting? And so, in the most common song structure, and I've talked about this before in my songwriting one, in the most common song structure or family of song structures for rock and roll popular song, the rock and roll AABA, where the A is actually kind of bifurcated into a verse and a chorus. So it's verse, chorus, verse, chorus. That's A, bridge, B, and then chorus or verse, chorus. So the bridge is a section that gives you an opportunity musically to introduce something new. It's a section for relief. Something new, a melody we haven't heard before. Potentially a twist on the lyric or the final chapter, the conclusion, bringing it all home before we put in conclusion the chorus on it at the end. That's sort of the songwriting purpose. And this is not the only form that you can use. It's the most common form that is used, and so it kind of, it has become a standard form, and it has, by its own definition, kind of, as a standard form, started to define a set of loose conventions around what you do there, because this is what's been done. But it's important to remember that songwriting is, at its heart, folk art, pop art. Like, there's no Académie Française that comes in and establishes what things mean and what the rules are. It just sort of emerges out of practice, as happens in folk art, which is great. So there are other things that a bridge is called. So I'm not going to go tell Sir Paul McCartney to stop calling it a middle eight. That's a little more common in England, and that's or whatever in the UK. And at the time that was what they called it, and I think they get to call I think they get to name some things, actually. I think the Beatles get to name some things. So middle eight, I don't know if that term originated with them, but certainly that's where I hear it the most, is when Paul McCartney is interviewed. A B section, so like in jazz, where the AABA form is a little cleaner, because we're talking about a shorter song form in like jazz standards out of, say, the Real Book, that are some of which are these old Tin Pan Alley songs from the turn of the last century, and some of which are songs that sort of followed in those footsteps, but with a non-bifurcated A. So it's just A, B, A. So there's not a verse chorus, it's just here's a section. And then in any event, I was on a songwriting forum and had a moment of doubt, taken aback. So in fact, I've been writing songs with bridges for 40 years and calling them bridges. And I was talking about that, and someone adamantly, insistently, called me out for using the wrong term. That's not what a bridge is. He says, I'm not going to call him out by name, because in the final estimation on my channel here, maybe, spoiler alert, maybe it doesn't turn out so well for him, but let's see, what does he say? He says, songwriters don't write bridges, they write B sections. Composers and arrangers write bridges, which are short connecting bits like a turnaround. Turnaround, if you don't know, and I guess don't trust me, because maybe I don't know what a bridge is, according to this fella. A turnaround, say, is something where, like in the blues, in the 12-bar blues, it's the last 4 bars where we come back around through the 5 to start over at the 1. So that's the only place I've heard that term used regularly. Is, the turnaround talks about, how we get back to one in the 12-bar blues, or the 8-bar, in the blues. But his point being, a bridge is just some short connecting sinew that is not lyrical, strictly musical, strictly about, really what he's kind of describing in actuality, if I step back and say that again, short connecting bits like a turnaround that are, composers and arrangers write bridges, which are short connecting bits like a turnaround. That's a cadence, if I had to guess. He's describing what I would call a cadence. How do we, get to the next chord? How do we end this section and smoothly move to the next chord? Which chord, and by extension, which, arranged, contrapuntal material, which, how will we express that chord and its implied harmony, its place within the harmonic structure? How will we express that with some melody, some melodic elements? What's the movement of the bass? Yeah, it's true that arrangers think about how to effectively and smoothly cadence from one chord to another, especially from the 5 to the 1, or however we're getting back to 1 is a cadence, and there are different ones, although not to go too far down the theoretical road. That's what it seems like he's really describing. In any event, I got a little bit sassy, to be fair, and I may have poked the bear a little bit, just a little bit sassy though, not really. I said, I don't know about that. I've been a songwriter for 40 years, and I write bridges. And then I went on to talk about what the actual post was about. Move on to a different point that's not relevant here. And then he came back at me. That just means you've been using the wrong term for 40 years. A lot of people do. Doesn't make them right. I've been writing songs for 52 years. I've met a lot of them. A lot of people who misuse the term bridges, perhaps because maybe that's what a bridge is, and that's so again. So I thought, have I been wrong all this time? I'm old enough that some of my core, my kids catch me at this all the time. A lot of my core knowledge comes from pre-internet, learning, which included just sort of the oral tradition of hearing somebody I trusted authoritatively told me this is what a bridge is, just like I'm doing now, and I made it so in my mind. So, am I wrong? Am I inadvertently? I wouldn't have thought to Google what's the bridge in a song. Am I wrong about this? Could I be wrong? And after I determine I'm wrong, should I call up my good friend Sir Paul McCartney and tell him, you got to stop calling it a middle 8. It's a B section. That's what this fella here calls it. I think I may have skipped that part of his diatribe, but in any event, songwriters don't write bridges, they write B sections. Sir Paul and I are so very wrong. So, expecting maybe I'm about to get humbled, and with some trepidation, I Googled what's the bridge, and as it turns out, I'm right. The conventional thinking is, describes what I would describe the bridge as, that it's a relief section that does what I just described. That you get your verse and your chorus, bridge, chorus, and that it's so. Gloating in my victory, let's recap what you as a songwriter want to get out of your bridge. And there's not much more to say about it. I think I've already pretty much covered that you want to be thinking, whether you're a lyricist or you're a songwriter, you do need to have some thoughts about what's going to happen in the bridge. If you're a lyricist, you got to be aware that there's gonna be three melodies that happen, and that whereas you need to have a lot of consistency in between your verses in the town where I was born, and our friends are all aboard. These are examples of two different verses. They need to sound the same. They're going to go in the same tune, the same melody. When you get to the bridge, there's a new melody. So it's okay at that point to change the rhythm, the cadence of the lyric, if you wanted to, if you had a reason to, if that would be one form of some relief that you might introduce. But more importantly, when you're talking about like the text of your lyric, this is your last shot to talk about it. This is when you wrap it up and bring it home. And it is an opportunity to think about, should I make a twist on this in some way? Or simply bring it to a conclusion in the sort of typical kind of three-act. You can think of this as a three-act format. You introduce an issue or a problem, you kind of get mired in it, and you solve it, for instance. It gets worse, then it gets solved. Something like that. As a musician, when you're writing music, the bridge is where you need to think something different. New melody, new chords, maybe not a new feel, but a new emotion, a new feeling. Like maybe it's lighter, maybe it's heavier. And that's where, when you're doing the whole kit, you're writing as a songwriter, like making, if the bridge has a dark twist to it, then maybe the music should be darker to kind of enhance that. So bridges are important. I think that, when I was younger, when I was first starting out, I didn't always write bridges. I didn't pick up on their existence at first, and I just thought about verses and choruses. That's what I knew. Is like, oh, there's the catchy part you sing over and over. That's the chorus, and then there's the other part. I often wrote songs that just went verse, chorus, or had like a verse. I picked up on pre-choruses from listening to a lot of Def Leppard. Verse, pre-chorus, chorus, verse, pre-chorus, chorus. But once I've kind of picked up more, once I started paying attention more, listening more critically and picking up on, there's a lot of times there's a third thing that happens, and picked up on the terminology for that, which thankfully was correct. That is called a bridge. Once I did that, then that opened up, that opened up a whole different world of the making your song stronger, more relatable, and that journey, easing the listener's journey by continuing to surprise them, by continuing to bring them something new, while at the same time drawing them into the web you're weaving, drawing them into the world you're creating, drawing them into the music, drawing them into the lyric. But the bridge is a really important, powerful opportunity. You don't have to use bridges. I still sometimes don't. It's an option. And there are other formats that don't do that. So notably, the 12-bar blues is just cycles. It puts a different pressure on you to stay interesting in other ways. But the bridge is a very natural way for you to stay interesting and to get creative and to like look ahead to kind of the arc of what you're writing, and thinking about what this bridge is going to do for you, what its purpose is. So savvy songwriters know what a bridge is, and savvy songwriters probably often write them. So you as a savvy songwriter, you should be aware what a bridge is and should be thinking about whether or not you want to use it in your particular song, and thinking furthermore about how you should be using it. Like, okay, this time around, what should this bridge do for me? So hopefully that's helpful. Hopefully that lays to rest what 30 seconds of Googling could have done for this dude. But I'll even point out like one of the top results that I had was his alma mater. um, Talking about it, and so in any event, I thought it was fun. It was funny. I'm relieved that I'm not gonna have to walk back all my talk of bridges. I'm not gonna have to burn those bridges, as it were, but instead I can simply keep crossing them over troubled water evermore. So till next time, take it easy.